Hi everyone, it's Nick. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, in this video today, we are going to be talking about how to inject personality into your home, also known as your house might be boring. Now listen, I don't know if your house is boring. Maybe you're RuPaul and you watch this, in which case, hi RuPaul. You know, you have that gorgeous Hollywood Regency home in Los Angeles and you've probably hired amazing interior designers to design it for you, in which case you got budget drag race money for years, in which case, no, your house is not boring. But if you're not RuPaul, it might be boring. And I get it. You know, you go shopping and you go to the stores and you kind of buy the same stuff and you're trying to shop within a budget because you don't have the drag race money and you're trying to make it all work and it's really tough. And that's where you end up on channels like this one. And you obviously care about this because you're watching my channel, so you care about adding personality to your home, but you may be struggling with that because otherwise you'd be watching Mr. Beast or something here on YouTube, but instead you're here, so I appreciate that. So let's talk about how you can inject some personality in. Let's get going. Okay, first tip on how to inject personality into your home is going to be to add warmth. So we're going to be talking about a few things here. I'm going to be talking about lighting. So first, yes, would it be a nicklewis video if I didn't talk about lighting? Would it be? I don't know. But here we are again, right? So adding different sources of lighting rather than just the one light bulb in the center of the room is really important to make a space feel more interesting because, you know, rather than sticking the big light on in the center of the room, if you have different lights coming at you from different sort of areas, cute little light, look at that little adorable thing. Look at that little cutie back there. Isn't she cute? Right? Like that's interesting. It's not expected. Now I could have just put nothing there. I could have put just another book, but it does sort of add a little bit something extra to have a nice little lighting because it draws attention, because it lights up. It literally lights up in your room and it creates warmth and coziness in every space. And of course, it also wouldn't be a nicklewis video if I also didn't mention wood and natural materials. Now, I've been over this 10 billion times, so I'm gonna spare you. But yeah, adding in warmth through things like wood is important. So if your space is gray and dead and lifeless with a lot of ceramic tile and white laminate surfaces and a gray polyester couch, and you're thinking, gosh, this isn't that interesting anymore, what do I do? Just even adding natural materials is going to add a lot more warmth into a space and instantly make it feel a lot cozier. Now, also fabrics. Now, okay, fabrics I think is the most important one here actually. Well, it's not the most important, but it's important. And that is that interesting fabrics go a long way to make a space feel more interesting. Choosing great, interesting upholstery really does matter. So that can come in many forms, right? We could be talking about color. So you could maybe be, you know, a blue chair might be more interesting than a gray one, okay? Pattern, a striped armchair might be more interesting than a solid one, right? Also interesting materials that you wouldn't necessarily expect. So I'm not always the biggest fan of boucle, especially the cheaper stuff, just because it's just not my vibe, but necessarily. But I will say that I appreciate that designers are having a lot more fun with furniture and more interesting materials than that we typically see. Some of these are a little kooky for me, a little, as you all know. Some of them are a little bit like the guy from Monsters Inc. And I don't really love that. Looking at you, CB2 chair, that still gives me nightmares. But some of the other stuff is actually really interesting because it is plush and cozy and interesting. And you're not gonna get that necessarily from just a plain sort of gray sofa. So look at different materials that you can use, especially in a living room or a bedroom, because those are really two areas where you get a lot of, you know, fabrics in there. Play with stripes, play with different patterns, play with color, and yes, definitely play with material choice as well. Okay, next up, add personality is going to be to use different shapes in your home. So we don't talk necessarily a lot about shapes on this channel. We probably should. That's on me. That's totally on me. I'm fully in control of what happens on this channel, so I should probably talk about it more, let's be honest. I will say that if you actually if you think your house is maybe not feeling like it's got a lot of personality, I want you to take a minute and look around and see how many squares or rectangles you have in your living room if you're home right now, because I bet you got a few. And I get it, rectangles are great. They're very efficient, they're space efficient, curves, sometimes you get some wasted space around there. So they're very efficient, right? We like to put a square coffee table with a square couch and a square chair and a square cabinet and a square. But if you really take a look around, then you don't have any way to mix up some of those squares or rectangles, it starts to feel really flat. And there could be an opportunity here, in addition to the different fabrics and wood tones and things that we're all talking about here, these all are working together to create more personality. You might find that adding unique shapes into your space feels a lot more interesting. So again, go as kooky as you want to, just like I said on the fabrics, right? If you want to go crazy here, there's some interesting architectural chairs and sofas and things that are a little bit more out there. Now, some of them are a little impractical. I am well documented that I'm not a big fan of some of the weird kooky sofas that are out there. Some of them are just flat out ugly, but you can't deny that they're not interesting. Do you know what I mean? Now, if you're just chasing a trend on Instagram, Personally, I just think I wouldn't advise that. Like if you love it, you love it and go for it. But if you do it because some influencer told you to get it, even if it's me, then that's stupid. You know, go with it because you actually really enjoy it and you think it's gonna reflect sort of your personality and what you truly enjoy. But you know, have fun. You know, you don't necessarily always have to choose sort of the basic safe option. You can mix it up and try some interesting furniture pieces. You look at Studio McGee, which is a style that a lot of people are emulating. A lot of people really love Studio McGee. I've noticed that with a lot of her designs, she has two sofas, you know, either across from each other or next to each other. She always chooses one that's a little bit more playing it straight. It's just sort of like kind of your basic. And then she does something like a day bed, or she does something a little bit funkier on the second one. And that's a really great strategy, I think, to make it feel like these are tied together, because there's usually some elements they're tying those two pieces together, but to kind of feel it's grounded in something safe and practical, and then something a little bit more whimsical. And that's gonna give it a little bit more personality and have a little bit of fun. So feel free to do something similar for your space too. Okay, next up is gonna be wall and ceiling treatments. So I would say this is especially important if you live in a condo, apartment, or you live sort of in kind of a builder sort of home where there's not necessarily a lot of interesting architecture sort of happening in the space. Because I think when dealing with wall treatments and ceiling treatments and all sorts of things, it's really important that we honor the architecture of the space. And sometimes a lot of these spaces just don't really have some interesting architecture, to be quite honest with you. In which case, in a way that's almost freeing, because I think you can kind of get away with a lot of really sort of weird things that you can do. Like I have panel moldings here and I'm in a condo, but no one cares because it's a condo. Do you know what I mean? Like you can kind of sort of do whatever you kind of so choose, and you're not necessarily, I think, as beholden as you are if you're in some space with massive vaulted ceilings or something weird, right? Like, so work with interesting wall treatments or interesting ceiling treatments. So what am I talking about? I'm talking panel moldings. I'm talking crown moldings. I'm talking baseboards. I'm talking chair rails. I'm talking wallpaper. I'm talking ceiling medallions. Remember those? Those were cool. Those were super old school and they're coming back, and I love ceiling medallions. I've gone on the record to say that they're beautiful. Paint your ceiling, right? Paint your walls an interesting color as opposed to white. Yes, I'm sitting here in a white room. Don't care, I'm a hypocrite, get over it. We all know that, okay? Ceiling, have fun. Paint it a different color. Why not, right? Put a different, put some wallpaper on the ceiling. That can be really funky. Just make sure that it's intentional. Ideally, consider committing to the whole room. So rather than just doing necessarily always the accent wall, consider ways that you can add some color and some wallpaper, or add some texture in the form of moldings, things that just make the walls feel a lot more interesting. I like when they sort of are painted out similar to the wall color, because I just think oftentimes it just fades in the background. What it does is it gives sort of an interesting backdrop for the rest of your space. So yeah, your furniture, you know, we're talking a lot about the furniture inside, but that's sort of the backdrop in which, you know, your eyes sort of set on. They at the end is the wall, right? That's what you're working with. So everything is sort of layered on top of that. Same goes with the ceiling. And so I think it's just really important to consider that when you're looking at your design. There's lots of funky things that you can really do with your walls, especially if you're dealing with wall treatments. It plays off the light in interesting ways. It adds texture and dimension to the walls in interesting ways. Definitely fabulous ways to sort of make your space feel a lot more your own. It feels a lot more custom because you intentionally chose it, as opposed to just the plain white walls or gray walls that you probably have. So I'm not necessarily, by the way, because again, we're talking with working with the architecture, I'm not necessarily talking about like funky, weird geometric walls that are weird, brightly colored accent walls or painted weird, crazy archways, right? Working with the space that you already have and considering that. Use things like archways, because sometimes there's like these archways to nowhere, which I personally don't love, but like use an archway or something. It's a transition point to use into a new room. So that's something really also important to consider, is that, you know, if you're trying to think like, I don't want to commit to a crazy color throughout my entire home, you don't necessarily have to. I would just consider that as an entry point when you're moving into a new area. That's your opportunity to maybe change it up, right? And that's where you can maybe put in some sort of interesting archway. That's where you can experiment with different moldings or different colors, because you're actually entering into a new space. So consider that and the architecture when you're doing some of these wall treatments. Okay, next up, and you know, this had to be on the list. This feels so obvious to me, but one time I said that like mirrors really open up a space, and people in the comments were like, I never knew that. And I was like, really? Like, I thought that was obvious, but yes, mirrors open up a space. Who knew? This one is also gonna make the list as, I feel like this is obvious, but maybe not. And that is personal art. Adding in personal art. I shouldn't be shocked by this because I know how many prints people buy from IKEA, and there's a lot of them out there. So I guess maybe I shouldn't be surprised. Personal art in some way, shape, or form. Now, does that mean that you need to go and buy some super crazy art from some super fancy gallery or something. No, but if you'd like to, I'm always a big fan of supporting local artists or artists that actually do this for work. We need to support artists because the same generic crap that's coming off the assembly line that's being made overseas, that's not adding personality really into your space, unless you love it. But like, anyway, you should probably think about supporting somebody who does this for a living because this is their livelihood. And you get to know that the money that you're giving that person, whether it's a furniture maker or it's an artist who's painting you a piece of art on your wall, or a ceramicist that's doing some really cool things for you, whatever, a lighting, whatever the case, you know that your money is going directly into that person's pocket and that you're supporting that person in their livelihood. And they're also doing that to support the surrounding community because they're probably buying their supplies from local places. And look at that, look at you. You're just building an economy here, all with your cute little home decor in your house. Who knew? So yes, you can support an artist, but do you need to? No, of course not. If you don't have the money, you don't have the money. I get that too. I'm not gonna shame you for it. You can DIY. You can take some beautiful photographs. You know, I see you're skilled. I've seen your Instagram feed. You know what? Maybe you've got some beautiful photographs that you might want to get blown up. You know, that can really work well. Or you know somebody in your family that does, and you want to, you know, they volunteer to give you some of their prints or something like that. That's cool, right? And you want to show some of those things off. Photography is great. If you want to DIY, you're on YouTube. You're literally on the place, right? I mean, don't click off this video because you're not done here, but when you're done, well, click on one of my videos. But then after a while, if you watch a few of those, feel free to click on somebody else's and they'll show you how to make art. I mean, I'm not good at it, so I'm not gonna tell you how to do it. No one needs to see that. But other people are really good and they'll show you and you can go and learn from them. Don't learn from me. But you know, they've got the supplies and they're able to make their own stuff over there. You can DIY your own stuff if you feel like it, right? Your kids, you know I don't really care for children, but I hear that some parents are really attached to their drawings, I guess, or something. And like, I'm specifically talking about kids' rooms. Let kids just like design their own space, I guess, whatever that means to them. You know what I mean? Like get their little fingerprints, they can go in there and do that. You know, this is easy. This is easy for them to do. My mom used to like cut a russet potato, like cut them in half and like basically like cut out stars and stuff and give me little stamps. And I remember stamping things with my little potato stamp. Did anybody remember potato stamps? Did my mom, she didn't invent that. Anyway, comment below if you did potato stamps, but now I feel like it's all plastic. But anyway, let kids have fun. Let kids have fun, make their own art, do their own thing, and frame that and put it on their walls. How cute is that, I guess? So try that, and that can really work for you, I guess. And of course, you also have thrifting, which is another great option. So if you want to get something that's a little bit, that fits your style, there's lots of interesting old things where we've got some people who have passed away, rest in peace, and now their stuff has ended up at some sort of local thrift store, and you can go and grab that, right? You can grab some, maybe they're weird relatives you can like frame and put them on your wall. I don't know, that could be fun and super creepy and weird but it's a story and that's fun. So, you know, feel free to get creative and make that work. Also, bonus points, if you do have interesting wall art, is use accent lighting. Use sconces and different, you know, I mentioned lighting earlier, not just talking about those sort of table lamps and floor lamps and ceiling lamps and things, which are all very important, but also people forget that you can get really, really cool accent lighting to really highlight it. Now you've got a wonderful focal point that you can now use in your space and draw attention to it. Another opportunity to use lighting and to show off your personality. Look at that. Okay, and then next up is vintage or family sort of pieces. So now I'm specifically not just talking about art, I'm also talking about furniture here. Now, some of you, this will fit into your style and sometimes it won't. It really is a little bit style dependent. My family seems to always just have like these traditional pieces that are not really my jam, but maybe you've got some aunt that had like 1950s pieces or something that she brought in from Denmark or something, which I'm jealous, but I don't have that. But maybe you do, in which case you've got some things that are gonna fit your vibe and they're gonna work for you, in which case, fabulous. Because those are great, right? They are, oftentimes the quality is better, let's be real, right? Like if your choice is sometimes between something sort of cheap that you got at a big box store, and then, which is sometimes not even that cheap, by the way, versus you can get something vintage that's like similarly priced. I mean, I've been at some vintage stores around here in Vancouver even, and I'm like, you know, honestly, if you compare West Elm, you might get like a console from West Elm that might cost you $2,500 to $3,000. Meanwhile, you can go get a vintage piece for like $2,500. That's literally from the 1960s. You know, that adds a whole lot more interest into a space, in my opinion. Oftentimes it's made better. Oftentimes, you know, it stood the test of time. There's more of a personality there. Feels like it's lived in. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it just adds a nice little touch and flavor to a space. So definitely consider those. Also, if you have some of these old family pieces and they're just, you know, the wood might be great, but maybe the upholstery is not there or whatever, you can also get these pieces reupholstered. A lot of people don't know that, but you can go, if you've got an armchair and you're like, it's looking a little worse for wear, but maybe it's got some things that you can save here, absolutely, you can get it restored. So a lot of this stuff you can actually get restored, and I think people should give that a shot, and you might find that restoring an inherited piece is way cheaper than going out and buying something crappy that's brand new. That people don't realize that, but it's true. Okay, and then my last tip for you here is going to be to reflect your lifestyle. So I probably should have led with this, but you know, here we are at the very end. We're gonna talk about it. What do you do? Like, what do you like to do? Like, are you a person who loves to read? If so, design yourself a beautiful little reading nook for yourself. Create some space that you're actually gonna use regularly. Do you like, maybe you and your partner like to sit out in the morning and have scones and tea first thing in your little cute solarium, in which case invite me over, that sounds lovely. If you want to do that, then design a space for that, right? Are you a person who loves to entertain, so that you've maybe got a beautiful table without a dining bench, because I hate those, but like, you know, you've got maybe 10 or 12 seats or 6 seats or whatever you have space for. If you love to entertain, design a space that's built for entertaining. And if you don't like entertaining, then put up a tiny little desk for 2 and your friends will get the hint. Do you know what I mean? Like, design your space that fits you. You have hobbies. I don't know you. This whole video, we're working under the premise that you have a good personality. Maybe, you know what I mean? So like, you got something, you got hobbies, you got a personality, you got stuff that you're interested in. How can you reflect that into your space, right? That could be, dare I say, sports memorabilia? No, I'm not gonna, that's too far for me. I can't condone that. But you know, whatever your interests are, find ways, without being themey, that you can bring them into your space in interesting, dynamic ways. So people can go and they walk into your space and they can go, I'm experiencing this person's style. I feel like when I'm in their home, I'm comfortable, I'm happy, feel like I'm in their space. I'm not in a showroom, I'm not in something boring, I'm not in some sort of asylum or whatever, because some of these spaces can be pretty drab. And you know, you got a nice, warm, comfortable space that reflects the person that lives there. And that's what this is all about. So get your hobbies. If you don't have hobbies, find some, then find ways that you can reflect that into your space. So that's it for me today, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this video. I'm going to leave here. What video am I going to throw to? Let's throw it to my video on theme rooms, because, you know, I said inject in personality, but I don't mean this far. This is a bridge too far for me. So I'm going to link that to this video. Have fun with that one, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks. Bye.